Welcome once again to this video lessons. Today in this edition also we will be continuing with what we left off in the previous video lessons. That is the cell structure and function. Now, before we enter into today's lesson, let us go back to our previous video lessons and try to recapitulate what we have learned in that previous class. Now, in that previous class, I introduced you to a person, a person who first observed the cell. Do you remember his name? Right. Yes, Robert Hooke. Robert Hooke, he first observed a cell in a slice of cork. A slice of cork, yes. He took a slice of cork, he observed it under a microscope, and he saw that he observed that it looks like a honeycomb, or rather like the walls, the bricks in the walls of your rooms. So, that was what he observed, and we also find in the previous lessons that this brick wall or that honeycomb, it looks similar to that onion peel which we observed. Now, have I told you that we human, you and me, we started life, or we started our journey we started our life as a single cell. We started our life, or before we were born, we started as a single cell. That is the egg. The egg in the womb of our mother. And then with that egg, we started developing from one egg. That egg, it started to divide. There are different types of divisions. So for those things, it is beyond the scope of this lesson. So anyway, so that egg, it started to divide, and then it forms a multicellular, that is us. It divided into my fingers, my hand, feet, my heart, lungs, etc. So it started with just one egg, and then it developed into these multicellular organisms. Now, we have also come across unicellular organisms, and organisms that functions fully like us, with all their functions. We have also come across those unicellular organisms like the amoeba. This amoeba is a single cell, and then it produces the pseudopodia for locomotion, for its nutrition also. And then we also viewed the varieties of cells that are there in this world. In this living world. We find that there are cells which are circular. For example, the red blood cells, the elongated muscle cells, the branched nerve cells called the neuron. So the cells are also shaped in different ways. Those are what we learned before. Now, what about the sizes? What about its size? Will they be same or will they be different? Now, see, The cells, as I said in the previous classes, the cells or the cell or even the micro unicellular organisms, it is very difficult for us to look at, to see them without the help of a microscope or a magnifying glass, since they are very, very, very small. Now, a cell can be as small as a micrometer. It can be as small as a micrometer. And for those of, I mean, you have come across the word micrometer. I think this is the first time. So a micrometer is just, say, you divide the meter. You take a meter, you divide that meter into 1 million part, 1 million. So when you divide that meter into 1 million, that just one part of that meter is a micrometer. That is small, very small. So a cell can be as small as that. Even a bacteria can be smaller than that too. There's bacteria. I mean, there are bacteria which are around 0.1 to 0.5 micrometer. So we have very, very tiny cells also, and then some are very large. Some cells are very large. Those cells we can look, I mean, we can see without the help of magnifying glass. For example, the egg of our chicken. That is an example of a cell. It's a large cell, so it's big enough. In fact, one of the largest cells that we know on Earth is the ostrich egg. The ostrich egg is very large, and it's considered the largest cell. Now, the size of the cells, as we are discussing, it has no relations to the size of the animal. It has no relation. For example, we cannot say that the size of cells in an elephant should be very large. It's not like that. Or the size of cells in a mouse should be very small. So the size of cells has no relation to the size of the organism. It's just that the size. The size is only related to its functions. For example, we see that the nerve cells, they are branched, so that they can, they are branched so that they can cover all our bodies, so they can gather information which they'll take to the brain, and from the brain it will send the signals to all the parts. So it's just basically the size of a cell is just related to its function. Even the muscle cells, they are elongated so that they can stretch. So the size of the cell has no relation with the size of the animal. Or, it's not necessary that the size of a cell in the elephant should be bigger and the size of the cells in the mouse should be smaller. It's not necessary that it should be like that. The size is just related to its function. For example, the neuron cells. The neuron cells are branched so that they cover the whole body to gather informations, the sensation that we feel. All this, it gathers those informations and transmit it to the brain. So that is why the neurons are branched. Or the cells of your muscles. The cells of your muscles are elongated, so that elongated and they are stretchable. So the size of cells are is related to its functions. not to the size of the organism. Now, and then in the previous class, I took you back to class 7, where we talk about organisms. I mean, the world around us is either living or non-living, and for the living organisms, they follow as they have a certain functions that they perform to survive. Yeah, and for that and to perform that functions, there are certain organs that are there to performing that functions. These organs are tied to functions like the nutrition, respiration, reproduction, etc. So let us also recall that these organs that play an important, they play a special functions in animals. They perform the same. There are also organs in plant which perform their special functions. For example, the root of a plant. The root of a plant, it absorbs the water, it absorbs the minerals, nutrients into the body of the plants. So that is the function of the root. And then we see the function of a green leaf. You have learned about the photosynthesis before. So the function of the green leaf is to use water, carbon dioxide, sunlight in presence of chlorophyll, right? You have studied that photosynthesis in previous classes while you were reading about nutrition in plants. So these different functions, the organs in plants are also performing these different functions. Now, as we describe these organs, we find that there are so many similarities when we come to the cellular level. Even in all the organs, we find that there are similarities. Maybe the shapes is different, maybe the size is different, but we find that they have so many similarities, and things which are contained in the cells, they are basically almost the same. Now, so what are these cells? What are these different parts of a cell? Let's try to look. Let's try to name some parts of a cell. Yes, I will definitely show you these are the parts of a cell later. But let's learn the different names that are there in a cell. When we look at a cell, the first thing we encounter will be a kind of some. The first barrier that we will encounter is the cell membrane. For us, for animals, it's the cell membrane. This cell membrane is a porous membrane. Porous means water, nutrients, or materials, or substances. The substances can enter through that. It can enter or it can come out. So this cell membrane, it is porous, and it is the first layer that we will encounter when we look at an animal cell. And this cell membrane is also called the plasma membrane. Now remember that in plants, there is a difference. In plants, we will have cell wall. Yes, the cell membrane is there. The cell membrane is there, but on top of that cell membrane, you will find a cell wall. Why do we have a cell wall in plants? Is that this cell wall, it protects the plant. It gives the rigidity. When you touch a plant, it is hard. But when you touch it, your skin is soft. So that is because your skin does not have a cell wall. Animals, or for that matter, animals do not have cell wall. But plants, they have that cell wall, and because of that, they are getting their structure is rigid. They can survive in very harsh environment. For example, we have some pine trees that are growing in a very high altitude, very cold climate. But though the snows and ice does not kill them, because that cell wall is protecting them. So that is the cell wall, the function of the cell wall. Now, as you cross the cell wall and then the plasma membrane, you enter an area where it is filled with a jelly-like substance. It's like the jelly. It's like a jelly, and that area, that place where we have reached is the cytoplasm. Now, the cytoplasm, it contains all the different parts of a cell, like the Golgi apparatus, the mitochondria, the ribosomes, okay, the vacuole. So all these are present there in the cytoplasm. And this cytoplasm, it is generally, if you compare it with the egg, if the similarity between the egg and this our cell that we are describing, the white portion of an egg can be described as a cytoplasm. Now, from the cytoplasm, we enter the central portion of a cell. The central portion is normally in the center of a cell, you will find that there is another spherical body called the nucleus. This nucleus, this nucleus is an important part of a living cell. It has the, inside the nucleus, it has the, sometimes you'll see a thread-like structures called chromosomes. Those chromosomes contains the genetic material, the genes. The reason why you should be having a black hair, or a black eyes, or brown eyes, or blue eyes, all this information that are passed on from our grandfathers, those heredity material that are there, it's carried on by these chromosomes that is there in the nucleus, the thread-like structure. And then within the nucleus, we have a spherical body again called the nucleolus. Now, as I've said, the nucleus inside the cell, that if we think of an egg, the yellow portion, we are going to say that it's the nucleus. Now, this nucleus is separated from the cytoplasm, the white portion of an egg, by a sort of a membrane called the nuclear membrane. Keep that in mind, because the presence of this nuclear membrane divides cells into two different kind of two different kinds of cells again. Now, as I've said before, inside the nucleus you have the thread-like structure. Okay, don't expect that. Do not expect that every time you look at a cell in a microscope, do not expect that you will see a chromosome all the time. Because a chromosomes, I mean the thread-like structures in that nucleus, it will not be there all the time. It will only, you will be able to see them when the cell is dividing. When the cell divides, your chromosomes instruction are going to get divided. So during that time, you can see those thread-like structure. So other times, you may see, you may not see. So do not expect to see these cells, I mean these chromosomes. Now, I say that the nucleus is covered by a membrane called the nuclear membrane. But in some cells, that nuclear membrane is different. I mean, it's not there. It's absent. So these cells that do not have the nuclear membrane are called the prokaryotic cell. Prokaryotic means pro means primitive, ancient. Okay, so prokaryotic cell, those cells which do not have that nuclear membrane are called the prokaryotic cell. And who have those kind of cells? Remember that it's only the algae, blue-green algae and bacteria. They have this prokaryotic cell. All other organisms are called, the cells of all other organisms are called eukaryotic cell. So remember that. Now, the job of the nucleus is not the job of a nucleus is not only to carry that inheritance message or okay. The cell, everything that happens inside the cell is controlled by the nucleus. And in fact, even materials, even the substances which enters the cytoplasm through the cell membrane, it can also penetrate the nuclear membrane. So the nuclear membrane is also porous. Now, to remember all these names that I have said, let's look at the diagram of an animal and the diagram of plant cells and try to see what are the different organelles that I had talked about. And by the way, organelles means all the different parts of a cells, the small parts that, those small parts inside the cells, we will call them as an organelles. Now let's see a cell. Let's see the cell of the cells that we have described. Now let's look at an animal cell. So this is our animal cell, and when we look at the animal cell, this boundary, which covers this is the cell membrane or the plasma membrane that we talk about. And then as you enter these cells, you find all this area with all these organelles, different kinds of organelles. This area is the cytoplasm that I have said. Now, and then from this cytoplasm, then the central portion of this cell is the nucleus. Now, for eukaryotic cell, there is a nuclear membrane which separates the cytoplasm from the nucleus. And then within the nucleus, there is another spherical body called the nucleolus. So this is the cell. Now let's look. I mean, this is the cell of an animal. Now let's look at the cell of a plant again, and see what is the difference. Now, the cell wall. I mean, the cell of a plant. The first thing is we have the cell wall. Do you notice that this cell wall is quite larger than our cell membrane? And then after the cell wall, we come across this the plasma membrane. And then we enter the cytoplasm. This is cytoplasm. And the it's quite similar to the animal cell. There is no difference except that in plant cell you will have large vacuole. Large vacuole, whereas in animals there will be small vacuoles and it will be scattered. And then in the plant's cell you will have some small green portion. Okay, I don't. So these are called these organelles are called the plastids, and these plastids contain some kind of pigment called the chlorophyll. Or yes, these plastids which are green in color are called chloroplast, and this chloroplast contains green pigment called the chlorophyll. Okay, there are so many other organelles inside a cell, but which you will learn further as you progress in your class. So for now, we will stick with what we have described here. Now, let's see. Let us try to compare what we have learned from the two cells that we have just described. Let us compare compare the difference between the plants and animal. Plants have cell wall. Animal do not have. Plants and animal, they do have the cell membrane, that is the plasma membrane. And then usually in plants there will be a large vacuole. Most plants, the large vacuole is situated centrally and the nucleus is pushed aside. Okay. And then in animals, instead of large vacuole, there are smaller ones. And then the cells in plants, especially the cells of a leaf, the green leaf plant, they have the cells are dotted with some kind of colored bodies. These colored bodies are called the plastids. When these plastids contain green pigment, they are called the chloroplast. And this chloroplast contain that pigment called chlorophyll, which is responsible for your photosynthesis, which you had studied in your previous class. Now, remember that animals do not have these plastids in our cell. We animals, we don't have that plastids. Now, as we approach the end of our class, you can do some kind of activity at home also. You take your books, draw a table with two columns. In one column you will write animal cell, and then in the other column you write plant cell. And now from the different characters of the plants and animal cells that we have described, you write down whatever organelles that you have come across that are present in the animal cell and those present in the plant cells. Okay, you list them out. You list them out, and then after you have listed out whatever you can get, you see what difference. You see the difference between them. Which organelles is not there in the animal cell? Which organelles is not there in the plant cell? You try. You look at that and find out. You will be able to find out the difference between a plant and animal cell. Now, let us recapitulate what we have learned today. At the outset, I told you the size of a cell has no relationship with the size of an animal. It is only related to its function, the way how the cell is functioning, and so the size of an I've told you that some of the largest cells are the egg of an ostrich, and some of the smallest cells are the cells of a bacteria, which can be around 0.1 to 0.5 micrometer. So and then the structure of a cell also in the structure of a cell we have come across the cell membrane, the cell wall, the cytoplasm, and then we come across the nuclear membrane, which envelops the nucleus. And then within the nucleus there is the nucleolus, the cytoplasm, which in the cytoplasm all the cell organelles, the different cell organelles are there. Together with the nucleus and the organelles in the cytoplasm, together they are called protoplasm. So these are the different structures of a cell that has been described today, and beyond that there are still so many organelles which you will study further in as you progress in your class. So for today, that brings us to the end of our chapter with cells, its structure and functions. In the course of our lessons, if you have any doubts, or if you still have confusion, you can always turn to your teacher. They will be around you. If you are in the villages, they will be there. Your teachers will be still, so you can turn to them, you can ask them questions. And if at all you have any, queries that you want to ask us, then you can reach me at my email address. So you can reach me at this email address at any time. I'll be as soon as I receive any queries, I'll try it. I'll make it a point to reply as soon as possible. So with that, we have come to the end of this chapter. See you again in the other classes again. So thank you.